probably the biggest barrier today is budgeting. In other words, the valley of death problem is a budget issue-driven problem. Venture capital needs revenue. And each time you move forward in the acquisition process, there's kind of a waiting period. And any of those waiting periods is there's a need for flexible funds to carry it through to the next stage. What we should have done is had two acquisition systems. One for how to be incredibly innovative and drive new technology into the hands of the warfighter, and the other was how to produce systems at scale. The other thing is that we adopted what were business best practices of the 1950s from the private sector, which actually weren't really good business best practices. And they were based on centralized planning, based on prediction, very linear ways of thinking. They were brought from Ford Motor Company with McNamara in the 60s. And the DoD adopted these writ large. And we've been working on this system for the last 60 years. But what happened is we didn't quite realize that the same management system didn't work out very well for the private sector. We adopted many of those processes. We essentially looked at our adversary, the Soviet Union, and mirrored some of their processes. And we created a morass of bureaucracy in the 60s. So the thought is, let's go back to the 50s. Let's go back to how we can produce things better and create two acquisition systems that essentially can complement each other.
Good.
So DIU should be given flexible hiring authorities. They should be given the flexible budgeting authorities. They should be given the ability to move fast and transition these type of systems. I think that we have the nucleus of doing the right things. We probably just need more of them, and they need to be empowered to take that there and say, let's use an OTA, which is a one-page agreement, and work with the private sector and then eventually evolve into something better. We have an industrial-based problem. We essentially have a workforce, supply chain, budget problem, but the way we buy things is pretty time-tested. Now, if you wanted to do new autonomous vehicles, new technology, I would take it in a different way than how we're buying submarines today. And that's why we need multiple pathways and multiple ways of doing things. A recommendation that I would make is to reestablish that funding mechanism, because that funding mechanism was very unique and clever in the way it took a tax on expiring appropriations and brought that money in to pay for training and new hires and things like that. It has worked in the past. It seems a few times. The key thing there is it has the ability to start things without a new start authority, and it has flexible funds to move forward on those type of starts. Most important thing would be is to bring the combatant commanders into the equation more than they are, and potentially even to think about some type of limited acquisition authority for them to drive some of that change. Department of Defense needs to start looking as it is a venture capital firm. And there's a valley of death in the VC world from round A to round B to round C to round D, and we could be looking at the same thing for initial prototype, advanced prototype, operational prototype, and so on. And there should be bridge funds between every one of those just like a VC would, and if something hits, we're going to spend it on this, and it's flexible enough to do that. I would bring together, like the VCs do, companies are competing for their money all the time, and I would bring the entire industrial base, if it's possible, into an OTA consortium, a non-traditional OTA consortium, to do that, where you could essentially drive round A's, round B's, round C's, round D's, different types of competitions within that industrial base for the type of programs necessary. Because if they hit, then you can go to the next bridge fund and say, okay, this is C round, we're going to go for it. If you don't have enough money in your D round funds, well, then everyone's just kind of going to go away. But if you've got that money that's flexible enough to put on the table, if someone succeeds, then you've got something. Offer of some kind of potential payoff is what will leap over the valley of death. But if you don't have it, you're always going to have a valley of death. I think what's important is to in as many ways as possible, bring together that non-traditional industrial base so the government can essentially work with it. And the other example I would give is, as far as success is Operation Warp Speed. And why was that successful? Because we brought together the non-traditional medical industrial base in one acquisition vehicle, and it was ready when an emergency hit. It was stood up and ready to go. We should have emergency vehicles ready to go if things happen that we need to go with. What's necessary is a lot of these are in traditional defense sectors. And there are a lot of non-traditional defense sectors like AI or quantum or autonomy, where it would be a good idea to set these up and pull together new small businesses, new non-traditional companies, so the department can start working with them. And they can work with them on a set of a framework that's not based on this, but based on something that's more commercially available and understandable to these companies.